Yo, this is Greg Kellogg. This is the Thursday's Checkdown. I'm joined on air by IDP Iggy. Iggy Gilbert is replacing Tipp, who is working out of town this weekend, so he's basically driving and is unable to come in. Our guest for tonight, Iggy, was going to be one of your compatriots, IDP Gary Davenport, but Gary had some issues. You want to explain?
He just said that he had some water heater things going on. Of course, when your basement starts flooding, that becomes the problem for anybody. But not to worry, because we've got a replacement guest there, as always, right as rain, dependable as the sun coming up. Even though I guess it's going to get eclipsed pretty soon. Welcome, JC.
Hey,
What's
Jason.
up, everybody?
Oh my God, you look so different. I liked your work effort, actually, but he had to put on the t-shirt.
I had to change real quick. And if you didn't notice the swag here, your fantasy team got mossed, baby.
And I actually got in that very discussion with a guy on Twitter this week that's in our beta test. Spell check changes Moss to Miss all the time. Does it for me. It did it for him. He had a big game from Randy Moss in his win to put him into the playoffs. And he said something about miss this. And I said, you got missed, just doesn't have the same panache as you got lost.
You know what?
And that kills us all. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about that a little bit. The generations. It's been pretty fun. I didn't make any moves purposely. I had 2 Terrell Davises. I just ran with it just for the sake of testing to see what would happen.
Okay, time out. We got to explain. This is a beta test.
Yeah, go back. Go back further.
There are still bugs in the system, and when Iggy drafted, somehow he was able to draft Terrell Davis twice.
I think what happened during that draft was like you must have drafted him in the 2nd or 3rd round, because all of a sudden I got skipped in the 3rd round, and it was some weird glitch that we hadn't seen before, and I had already done 2 before that, and it never happened. So it was just some random new glitch that happened. I'm glad we found it. So
did you get the same scoring for Terrell Davis? Do you get his score?
It was different every week. It was different every week. Kudos to that. That works well. And I think, did either one of you load a queue? Like, did y'all load anything in your queue?
I always do.
Job? Yeah,
I always do, but I'm live, so it never goes to my queue because I always make my draft pick on time.
Well, I didn't know. I liked. I hesitate at times, and I was like, can it make it back around to me? I don't know. One of those moments. So I clicked it real quick with like 1 or 2 seconds left, and I don't know if that double drafted it or what could have happened. But what's up, Mel? I want to say how are you, Mel? Thanks for joining us. Danny, thanks for having us here, man. And we're still gonna have a great show today. Still got a Hall of Famer with us. Got JC, one of the best in the business. Like I said, dependable as the sun coming up. And Greg, aren't you going to be in the eclipse somewhat? Aren't you going to be like right there in it, kind of close to it?
You think I go outside and see that stuff?
It might happen while you're walking the dog.
I walk the dog 4 or 5 times a day, 10 to 15 minutes. I do get out and get a little bit of, and in the morning, it's basically around 50 degrees. And I'm going out in sweatpants, flip-flops, and a t-shirt.
Sweatpants, that's classic.
Or once in a while I have long sleeve, but I don't wear a jacket or anything because right now it's 84. So it goes from 50 to 84. So, and this is a little too
Houston.
Much. Oh, such as Houston, yeah. So I don't get out a lot. I do get out some, and my wife and I go out once in a while and do things. I went out and I bought some new computer stuff. I bought a hub, guys. Get this. I've got 4 external drives from years ago, and I was hoping I could find all my old articles. I've been kind of searching around trying to find the articles I wrote back in the 2000s. And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you, no, can't find any of them. There's some that are still out on the web. Somebody found one of mine on Football Guys, and it's still on the web. I go out and I search Blog Talk Radio for my old shows, And I've been talking up how Gary and I and Walt Sperlin, Wally at the time, he's Walter now, interviewed Keenan Allen. And I've been saying he was a third rounder. Most of the guys we got were UDFAs, undrafted free agents. We actually interviewed 3 players on that one interview. We got all of our players from an agent named JT Johnson, who in 2013 was listed on sportsagentblog.com as the up and coming NFL agent for 2013. In that interview, we interviewed a kid named Clark, who was undrafted. I don't even think he signed as a free agent anywhere. Small school linebacker, Northern Illinois, if I recall correctly. Keenan Allen, and a kid named that you might remember, Iggy, a kid named Amerson. Second round pick of the Washington Redskins cornerback, Dave Amerson. He didn't last a long time, 6-7 years, but he had some pretty good stats, 9 interceptions in his career. And as a second round pick, he was the highest draft pick that we ever interviewed. So unfortunately, I found the show sheet on Blog Talk Radio, but I didn't find the audio. I would have loved to have gotten the audio and clipped it to play a little bit of it for Gary, because Gary was, instrumental in this is back in 2013. Gary and I were doing podcasts in 2012. So when I say I've been doing podcasting for a long time, Bob Harris and I were doing them in the early 2000s. Just totally different world back then. So
yeah, way ahead of the game. So
yeah, I actually pulled up. I'm going to say some names, and I want you guys to tell me if you know them, if you recognize them. Rick Saratella.
Rick Saratella, not.
Okay, Mike Neese.
That sounds familiar, but I don't know if I know it.
Mike Neese was with Fantasy Insights.
Maybe that.
Rick Saratella, Roto World, I think.
Okay.
Rick was the NFL Draft Bible. When the NFL Draft Bible was a big site, that was Rick Saratella.
Okay.
Bob Lung.
Okay.
Bob Lung.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of the Fantasy Taz?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's Jim Day. He died this past year. So rest in peace, Jim. Yep. Good friend of mine. Jim was great. Okay. All those names and more were on the same podcast talking about fantasy draft strategies. I mean,
and when are we talking about? What year? What year are we talking about?
2012, I think.
Oh,
nice.
We were talking about an idea that Joe Bryant came up with called value-based drafting. We were talking about stud running back. I'll tell you what we weren't talking about. Zero running back.
Yeah.
Nobody drafted
it's different
zero
now.
running back back then.
It's different now too. It's going to be way different now too. This year, I feel like a lot of teams are going to that dual style running back. They're going to just do a committee. So it's going to be a lot.
Committees. We had committees back then. We just had.
I think it's going to be a little bit
more bell cows, but we did have committees.
Yeah, I think there was
Kevin Falk. Kevin Falk was a committee back his whole career.
I mean, Todd Gurley wasn't. I mean, Todd Gurley, like we had players that were just
so you're telling me Todd Gurley didn't have a third down back that came in for him ever?
Sometimes I guess that's okay. I don't really consider that a committee. I feel like we're gonna have a lot more. You'll see like 2 running backs come in now. You'll see some stuff like that where you're gonna get these trick plays where you see 2 running backs in the backfield, or you'll have a third down guy.
Well, we used to have 2 running backs almost all the time.
You had fullback.
One of them was called a fullback. Yeah,
it's a little bit.
Once in a while, an H-back.
There's only one real legit fullback. CJ Ham's still around too, but Juszczyk and CJ Ham are like the last of a dying breed.
Yeah, because they're lead blockers,
they can catch, and they can do they can do a little bit of everything, but they block.
Special teams, that's a big part about it. If you're going to be a fullback, you better play special teams.
Okay, so we were going to talk IDP with Gary, and in preference and deference to Gary, I still want to talk about IDP because we advertised this show as Gary, and so the people that came on, I'm sure, were thinking let's talk IDP. So one of the questions I was going to ask Gary, I'm going to ask both of you gentlemen because you both play a lot more IDP than I do. You say you got to get a cornerback. Let's say you're in an IDP league that isn't just DB, it's cornerback and safety. So you have to get a cornerback. Now, back in the day, there was this cat named Deion Sanders. You may remember him. You may be too young to remember him. The guy was a terror. He would return. He'd get a lot of touchdowns. For a defensive back, he scored a lot of touchdowns. And late in his career, he also played wide receiver a little bit and caught the ball, got you points that way. Then there was this cat named Darrelle Revis. Now, Darrelle Revis was the first of what I call a shutdown corner. People would not throw at Darrelle Revis because he was that good. Okay? People still tested Deion Sanders because they hated him. They wanted him to look bad. But people didn't test Darrelle Revis. There were seasons where he might get 26 passes thrown his way. Okay? So do you go for the great player, even though he may be a shutdown corner and not get the opportunities? Or do you go for a terrible cornerback that has a guaranteed job? You know he's not coming out, but you also know every team in the league is going to pick on him. Who do you look for? What's your strategy?
I would say
with you and then JC.
Yeah, that's a good question, Greg. Because fantasy, regardless of the position, the names that are more recognizable are going to get called. For example, Diggs had a remarkable season as a cornerback, and he had double-digit interceptions, which I believe we haven't had prior to that.
Offensive guy here, Diggs.
No. Diggs' brother.
Yeah.
Tell me full name.
It's Trevon Diggs, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, Trevon Diggs. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because you say Diggs, and I'm thinking Stephon.
Yeah, well, they're both in Texas now, but Trevon's been with the Dallas Cowboys with a great organization as far as taking care of their players. But it's a perfect example. He wasn't really he was somebody's brother, and then he became himself. By leading the league in interceptions, getting double digits interceptions, I believe, for the first time in 12 or 13 years prior to that. So did something remarkable. The next year, his fantasy value plummeted because people quit throwing his way on 50-50 balls. They looked elsewhere against the Cowboys, who, also didn't have the best linebacking core, so you could attack them in different places. But to answer it in the phrase that you put it in, I like cornerbacks that are going to get targeted, that are going to get some volume, like nickel cornerbacks, because they can come up and play the run as well, and the more tackles you can get, the better generally in IDP. Gary, I want to say, Mel, this isn't a Lions shirt. I would never do that.
This should.
This is a Kings Classic IDP, the first one ever. I was wearing it for Gary.
Inaugural, baby.
Yeah, the inaugural, man. Gary put it together. Great commissioner. It was fun. The point scoring system makes sense. But Greg, I'm kind of like you. I'm a purist. I want every statistic to count. Fantasy Football Sevens is going to be going in year 5, my charity league that I've been running. But it's based off a system that you kind of played in. I kind of incorporated the rules in there. But I want a cornerback that can get punt return yards. I want a cornerback that can get tackles. There was one year, Desmond King with the Houston Texans, man. He led the league in punt return yards, and that boosted his value tremendously in that scoring system. So, to the ultimate answer, you know what it is, Greg. Know your point scoring system. The Kings Classic system is you have to start a cornerback in this league, and the point system highly tilts. You get way more points if your cornerback gets the tackles, because Gary wanted to balance everything out, as any good IDP commissioner would do. And it's the same with me. If you get a tackle as a cornerback, a pass deflection can count as 3 points. Are they going to get targeted? If they're going to get targeted, can they get a pass deflection? Because if they can get 2 pass deflections, that's six points. Okay, that's just as much as a touchdown. So there's all kinds of strategies.
More than a tackle, because a tackle's 2, right?
In most leagues, yeah, 2-1, somewhere depending on it. Solo tackle. Sometimes you get bonuses for a solo tackle, which most cornerbacks, let's be honest, they're out there by themselves. So a solo tackle is usually what you get. So there's more than one way to pet a cat, and you just gotta look at your
there
sports.
is. But JC, the wisdom of the youth. There's a kid out there named Ian, and you guys have probably heard Scott Fish talk about his son.
Oh yeah.
And Scott has said he asked Ian how he drafted, and Ian said, I look at the points. I draft the guys who score points. That's kind of the way I feel. You want to project what they're going to get next year, but when I ask the question, do you go for the superstar or do you go for the guy you know is going to get picked on? How do you go, JC?
To me, I feel like so when it comes to IDP, I feel like the cornerback or safety position is kind of somebody you can kind of lean towards, fading on a little bit when it comes to for sure. The back of the draft, because you can find players too, like especially when it comes to like safety. Like I said, we were talking about earlier, Cameron Bynum was somebody that nobody was even targeting, and he had the defensive line for the Vikings was so bad that they were just passing the ball so much that he was having to tackle every single time. Another thing you could be looking for too is those like nowadays you have those hybrid, cornerback or safety linebackers, right? Who come up and are strong, like that Troy Polamalu style.
Brian Branch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's another person.
Absolutely.
Sleeping on, didn't even think about, and he came out of nowhere, had an insane year, and as a rookie. So I feel like with that position, it's something that you can kind of look for later. You can even sometimes find some players in free agency, on the waiver wire, but that's a position that I kind of like to fade when you're playing an IDP, because you can find, like I said, Cameron Bynum was probably not even drafted in most leagues last year. I highly doubt he was. And he was probably one of the top, he played free safety and just dominated, because he was literally the last resort for them. Like, he had to make so many tackles, and it was just like, all right, well, he's either going to make a bunch of tackles. I don't know. We were betting on him almost every week because he was making.
There was a stretch. Yeah, we were taking it. Yeah, he was obviously one of the best waiver wire pickups of the season.
Let's shift it away from the player to the team. Do you guys, and I'm going to start with JC this time, do you guys look at total plays by the defensive team? And if you do, because the more plays the defense is on the field, clearly the more tackle opportunities there are. Do you bump up players based on how bad their defense is? Now, I know Iggy said he looks for bad offenses, because that also puts the defense on the field a lot more. But take offense and defense. Do you look at the total plays to kind of determine how many opportunities the players on that team are going to get? And JC, if so, how much does that factor into your evaluation of individual players on that team?
I still think that's positional wise. It still depends on positional wise, because there's still certain players that don't do well on a bad offense or a bad defense. Like, to me, like the Vikings, the reason that Bynum ended up being so good, right, is because the front line was so bad. So maybe you're looking for one part of the field at this position on defense doesn't do well. So maybe this is like I said, a last resort type player to get tackles or make interceptions. But I feel like when you're getting into like defensive linemen and you're getting into like defensive ends and stuff like that, you got to think about, elite players, like Oluokun. He's been so elite for years now, and it's just nice to have that kind of players. But
you wouldn't let him go across the street. Now he's letting you know that he wants out.
I'm pretty sure somebody just got an accident outside. I heard a big boom and I heard a bunch of brakes, so I think that's what she's barking at.
You look more positional group and not so much overall defensive snaps.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it really depends on how good or bad a defense is. It depends on positions in that defense, because like some defenses are really bad in the back secondary, but they're really great in the front. So you're looking for those players there. some like I said, with the Vikings, it was like, all right, well, you had Danielle Hunter, and then Cameron Bynum was that like guy who ended up making all these tackles because they weren't doing anything on the front. They were just getting blown away there. So you can look for, I mean, that's a little bit, you could look into that where you're like, all right, well, maybe this position isn't so great here, or their line's isn't good here on this side. Maybe they're really great on this side. Like that's what you need to look for on defenses. Is what
now, I understand that, Iggy. I do understand what he's saying, but if you're looking at cornerbacks, say you're at a position of need and cornerback is what you want, do you allow the opportunities that a bad pass defense? The team's got a bad pass defense, so offensive teams are going to attack them via the pass. They know that. Does that impact your ranking of those players? The sheer number of snaps that are going to go against that defense.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I'm just look at it per division. Okay. Now you got the Chargers, you got the Broncos, you got the Raiders, you got the Chiefs all in the same division, right? Well, two of those quarterbacks are top 5 passers in the league. So if you can snag a defensive back in that, or a cornerback, or a rookie cornerback that's expected to start, especially, you have a positional advantage, and it is. Yeah, I think like JC was right on it. I think there's another aspect as well, Greg, and it's just like we're always on the hunt for the 3-down running back. We were, you and I were on Nick Chubb. There's certain running backs we're on because they're going to get more volume. Preaching the gospel of Bob Harris, if you will. Give me the most opportunities, and I'll go with the volume in a this or that situation. And linebackers have that as well. There's certain linebackers that the green dot. That's a big thing in the IDP world. Shout out to Mike over there. He was with 4for4. I don't know where he's at right now, but he was in the IDP Classic as well, or he is, I should say. And it's the green dot is a communication, just like the quarterback for the offense. Most of the time, it's a linebacker. Sometimes it's a safety, and they're generally not going to come off the field because they're doing the communication with the defensive coordinator. So like those players become they have a level, it's more encompassing than that. It's not just like they're a great communicator. It's because they're great on the field and they have a high IQ and they're able to make audibles, just like the quarterback is able to do with the head coach or the offensive coordinator or whoever's talking to them. So, you're allowed 32 of those per team. Everybody's allowed to back up. But those 32 players have more volume, and that's another thing I look for. And then you got to be, I would say, just to kind of, another thing I'm looking for, defensive tackles. I mean, if you got a plugger, Greg, if you got a 3-4 defense and you got a nose tackle and his job is to take 2 men every play, a Kenny Clark or
he's not going to get a lot of tackles because he's double teamed every play.
But he's going to have a lot of volume, and and that's his job in the defensive scheme. So those are just little things you try to take, when you're looking at snap count or volume, to keep in mind.
So Pete Sandoval in the chat said a safety to me is prime position in IDP. Now, I'm not an IDP expert, but I've played IDP leagues. And to me, the prime position in IDP was a 4-3 middle linebacker.
Yeah, for sure.
That was the guy that cleaned up on the tackles because he had 2 tackles in front of him and everything got shoved to him. Am I wrong now? Would you go back to Iggy first and then JC? Would you take a safety over a strong 4-3 middle linebacker?
Well, I mean, I think there's more 3-4 defenses last year than there is 4-3, but a lot of people are playing a new nickel hybrid defense. So if you still got a true thumper right there in the middle, and they're just expected to be everything for their defense in the middle from C gap to C gap, which means from the outside tackle to the outside tackle, everything in between is their responsibility, then, yeah, you're going to take those players for sure. But, Greg, this is just one thing I read, and it just rings more and more true, and I see it happening all the time, and I try to tell it to everybody I see on every show I see. When they put the premium on the quarterback, once the quarterback became of premium importance, then the defensive end became of premium importance. And we can see that We can see that with the salary and how much those positions are getting paid. But once you put the premium on the defensive end, now you got to have a premium on offensive tackles and tight ends that can block and also run routes, because defenses are playing more zone than they ever have in the NFL. Okay, just because of the rules, and you can't have a bump and run cornerback hardly anymore. You're just going to get penalized for being handsy. That's just the way it is. You can't hip drop tackle, so you need guys that can come in, hit legally. Usually get a lot of momentum so that they can hit these guys as well. But like my point with that is, you put the premium on the offensive tackle / tight end. Now you're getting these hybrid tight ends everywhere to attack the zone. So now the premium is being pushed onto safeties. We need these hybrid safeties like JC talked about that are big bodied, can play linebacker, can play safety. We don't have to replace you. We need you to come up and help with the outside sweep, but we need you to cover Travis Kelce or David Njoku or even Greg's guy over there in Detroit. What's the young kid's name? Sam Laporta. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to have somebody that could cover all those guys. So that's my answer to that.
Raiders.
So JC, going back to Pete Sandoval. More and more teams used to be, it was 60-40 run to pass. That was the NFL in the 60s and 70s. 60-40 run to pass. Now it's 60-40 pass to run. So that's got to increase the value of safeties over linebackers. But how do you differentiate, JC? Do you go strong safety, free safety who moves all over? The strong safety always used to be the guy that would line up on the tight ends. But with these hybrid tight ends, strong safety can't cover, can't cover Travis Kelce.
But we have those. So nowadays, like I said, you're looking for those Troy Polamalu style players. That's your hybrid safety linebacker player who's like a really strong. They come up and make tackles. They even come up and make,
Name two other than Branch.
Currently
today.
Halafanga, how do you say his name? From
Hufanga for the 49ers. Yep. Then you have Isaiah Simmons is a perfect example.
I'm gonna say Chin from the Panthers.
Yeah, the Carolina Panthers.
Those players are like that, where they're gonna come up and make big tackles. But Cameron Bynum.
Okay, so now you take them. Name the true 4-3 middle linebackers. Are there any left, Iggy?
Yeah, I mean, Demario Davis, I think he still is, with the Jet style of trying to have a good defensive line to control everything. You could say Nick Bolton for the Chiefs. They like to try. Well, they use Chris Jones. Steve Spagnuolo runs a lot of formations, but Nick Bolton's still that guy. I think they ran a 3-4 in Jacksonville last year, but Foyesade Alakun was still. He pretty much was the interior linebacker. He's the most dependable player of this decade from a fantasy standpoint.
Sure, 100%. Oh yeah,
100%.
So would you take these linebackers you just named? I can't even try to pronounce the 49er guy's name, but Bolton and him, would you take them before you would take any of the safeties?
Yeah, I'm still like a true. Give me the guy that's going to get the volume, going to still play the run. I still look for the middle linebackers before I do the hybrid safeties, but the hybrid safeties go just as high, especially if they have a thing in fantasy called dual designation where they can play safety and a linebacker. Now you've covered bye weeks. Yeah, I mean, you've just opened a whole can of worms with that.
Okay, so JC, here's the question that everybody in my shoes wants to know. What round do you start taking IDP? I mean, I don't take a quarterback till the third round.
Oh, okay. So
first round. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, first round was always wide receiver or running back, but right now with Kelce and Laporta, I might take a tight end in the first round, and I'd always take a good running back over a wide receiver in the first round. So first, second, third round are pretty generally, for me, offensive players. Am I making a mistake? Should I take a defender in the first 3 rounds?
So here's what's so awesome about IDP is legit. It depends on how do you want to build your team? Do you want to build your team as an IDP heavy team where you just, stacked on defense? This is what's crazy about IDP. You literally are open to
I want to
how
build the
you want to
highest
build
scoring
your
team possible. I
well,
don't care what position
here's
the money comes from. Just show me the money.
so to me, if you want to get great defensive players, you start drafting maybe the 4th round because you can get some good play. Like imagine
TJ Watt.
imagine having Crosby and Wilkins on the same team, dude. Imagine having that on your team. Like the Raiders defense, I'm going to be extremely afraid of that this year. They're going to be explosive. Max Crosby is on the up right now. Like grabbing him, there's imagine having Crosby and Aluakun on your same team. Like your team would be scoring insane points. It'd be like having McCaffrey and like Bijan Robinson on the same team. Like it'd be, or McCaffrey and Breece Hill or Breece Hall. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be explosive. So you think about these like, high end defensive players, well, they can put up points like your McCaffreys, your Justin Jeffersons, like your players like that. So especially when you're playing, in FF7s, like they are comparable, like your certain players are comparable to your running backs and your wide receivers. And that's why it's like when you're looking at your safeties and your corners, like they're more comparable to your like, your tight ends are going to be here and there, hit here and there, miss here and there. Like you're looking for matchup dependency on those positions, unless you find a team. Like I said, Cameron Bynum ended up being a player that, he was a free agency ad, and, he ended up being on a team where they couldn't, do anything on the front end. So it was always dependent on, someone having to tackle a wide receiver. So it's like I feel like you can find more of those players in free agency than you can find, like tight ends, like you're streaming tight ends, like to me, that's what you can
Not me.
find.
I'm drafting one in the first round.
You are,
Stream tight
but
ends.
if you don't draft that like insane player, like then you can find, you're streaming or you're finding those players. I feel like I would rather have dependency on players where I know they're going to be tackling or probably getting what do you call it? So a tackle or a sack or even a half sack or,
tackle for loss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Iggy,
Get on quarterback.
We're going to get into the FF7s real quick, but first I wanted to ask you something. You like auctions, correct?
I do. I love them. Yeah, I love them.
Okay, so an auction, for those that have never been in one, allows you to get whatever players you want. You just have to spend for them. And if you spend too much early, you're going to have crap on the rest of your team. But you can get those great players. You can build up a core of 3 or 4. If you're great at free agency, you can fill in later. So that's one auction strategy, is get those studs early. Another one is to bleed other people dry so that you can pick up the mid-range guys, the upper mid-range guys, cheap late. If you're going hard in an auction league, name 2 players you can't live without. Offense and defense, 2 offense, 2 defense. Who do you want in your auction league?
Man, yeah, going into next year, I think I really want CJ Stroud, especially if it's a six per passing touchdown. I just think that he's going to be – I think he's set up for success. He's got a defensive head coach that's like, I'll take care of this. You go do your thing. Take care of the football. You got Joe Mixon back there in the back to help with pass blocking as well. I just think he's set up so well. So I think I really like him offensively. And then man, another one that I really like from an offensive standpoint, man, I think I really do. I think it might be Drake London. I think he's in for a big year with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins just makes great wide receivers, man. He does. He's got a track record of it. So I think I want a big wide receiver in that offense. That defense, they got a defensive-minded coach as well. But I'm not sure it's all going to come together for Morris in the first year. So let's watch that happen. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be trying to lead a lot of late drives. maybe getting some padding, 3 or 4 point lead, trying to get it to a 10 or 11 point game in the fourth quarter, which we all know how important that is in fantasy. And then defensively, yeah, it's always I like TJ Watt so much. He's just so reliable. I also really like Foyesade Alakun is great. Nick Bolton is great when he stays healthy. Those guys are just studs. I also like I'm a homer. I like Rashawn Gary. I don't like you. I can get out of it with pretty cheap.
Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan, go Big Blue, right?
That's right.
And it's funny. Talking about it earlier, I wanted to say Charles Woodson is a quarterback that doesn't get enough respect. He does, but he should be up there with Deion Sanders.
He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer waiting to happen. Hey, Mel asked about Micah Parsons.
Winner.
Yeah, Micah Parsons is on that list. He's a do-it-all. Who with Leighton Vander Esch retiring, they may move him back to inside. I don't know that Micah Parsons would want to be listed as an inside linebacker. Going back to what we talked about, Greg, it's the defensive edge pressure are the second highest paid players on the field. So he probably wants to remain an edge, but they may move him over to the inside because I think he would do so well there. I mean, if he moves to that middle linebacker role again, watch out. Go get him.
JC, I got to ask one Michigan/Detroit question. James Houston's back. James Houston had a pretty good year 2 years ago. He applied. He didn't start. He didn't do a lot of things, but he applied pressure when he was on the field, which set up Aiden Hutchinson very nicely. So with Houston back and the potential that Detroit goes for an edge in this draft, what do you see for Aiden this year?
Oof, man, Aiden, you're hitting my heart. I love Aiden Hutchinson. Like as a card collector, he's one of my PCs, my personal collection players. Like I think that I already see Hall of Fame written all over this kid. You saw the amount of times and frustration of him getting close to sacks, getting close and held, or man, this kid is special. I like Max Crosby is another one of my players that are like that. So I feel like Aiden is on he's on the rise. He just needs that extra person to step in, to help him. I think that now Max Crosby is going to be he could be a leading sacker now with having Wilkins in there. I mean, he's just missing that one piece, like I think Aiden is too. You see him he's the main attraction on that line. They like to do everything for him. So, and you can see it. You can see the frustration. He's so close almost every time. He's got that spin move down, like we saw from Aaron Donald.
Power move too.
He's strong. Yeah. Aiden he's one of my favorite players on defense. Him and like I said, Max too. He's got that. You saw Max when I first started following Max. It was off of what's the show that they do? Hard Knocks. And it was like his first rookie year, and he came in, and I'm like, oh, this kid's got some dog in him. He's got some fight in him. And then all of a sudden you see boom, 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 boom. I think the same thing's going to happen with Hutch, dude. Aiden Hutchinson, like he's just missing that one person to help him, get all the pressure off of him, like it's like that one wide receiver that you have on your team, but he gets all the attention. So it's just like,
I did. And a lot of people talk bad about Anzalone, but I think he was a great linebacker. I drafted him in the Kings Classic. He was like what you call a low floor player, and you got to have those on IDP, just like you have to have those on the offense, Greg. It's kind of works both ways.
Let's move back to Iggy in the main screen. Mel did ask about Puka Nacua. There was some news about Puka earlier today. Basically, Puka lost 10 pounds. Now, he did that. He says he's feeling better, but I got to question is the wisdom of that. 10 pounds means those hits are going to hit a little bit harder than they did last year. Now, FF7s. I want you to explain the concept behind FF7s, how much it costs to participate, and when you're going to start signing people up. It is a charity league, and so I will be participating this year. I don't care if it's IDP. I don't care if I lose every game. I'll participate because I believe in charity. And I can't ask other people to join Scott Fish if I'm not willing to join FF7. So Iggy,
thanks,
bring
Greg.
yourself
Yeah.
to center screen and explain FF7s to us.
Yeah, I still have the stack. We have them in the envelopes. We had to get the hospital's addresses. Thought I was going to get a little more help, but I'm not trying to bash the people helping me as well from the Colorado Rural State Agency. We're going to send those out, yeah, but every year it's about Kawasaki's disease, just bringing awareness about, a disease that affects young children, generally
What is
children. It's autoimmune response to a virus. And I
Okay.
didn't know what it was. When I heard Kawasaki, I just thought of
I
like
think
dirt bikes.
motorbike. I think of
Yeah,
motorbikes. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so my daughter was affected with it. We didn't really like. They tried to say it was parvo, and then they said rosio, which is something real common. So it's really easy to misdiagnose. And what happened is her coronary artery dilated like 1.8 millimeter or something like that. Like I forget the measurement exactly, but like when that happens, there's potential for a blood clot right by your heart. And that's kind of like a worst case scenario. There are some long-term effects. It's only been recently discovered, if you will, since the 70s, but there was like a spike with it during COVID. So there's a lot of academic research and medical research going on trying to figure out why that took place. And I worked at a ski resort, so a lot of tourism, and she was one of the first, like before we even knew what COVID was, she had Kawasaki's disease. So we're also researching that as well. But everything we do goes towards some foundation. We've donated to the UK. We've donated to a couple foundations in the United States, and I just wanted to make it our personal goal to get to every rural hospital and a medical clinic in Colorado. Because that's where I live, and I just think rural places may not have all the information available to them that something in the city might. So that was our goal with it.
Do you have a financial goal? What you hope to raise?
Last year we raised a little over $1,300, and the stamps and stuff, everything. It's still not enough to cover what we do, which is fine because my wife and I, this is something very passionate to us, for us with our daughter going through it. We were in Children's Hospital for 7 days. My daughter was, so it was a pretty big. She got flown in a jet, out there. It was a big ordeal. So. What I really like about it, Greg, is like I'm no doctor. I'm not claiming to know the human anatomy any more than any other fantasy football person or anybody. But when it comes down to it, is you just need to inform people about it, make people aware about what it is, and that's I feel like almost 80% of the battle. Because then you can ask your pediatrician or your physician, hey, what about Kawasaki's disease? Do you think that might be something? Now you've already ask the doctor. They're going to be more aware of it. Yeah, if these symptoms persist for 2 or 3 days, let's not wait. Let's just go ahead and get it tested somewhere with where they can run the cardiovascular test to find out.
What is an FF7?
So fantasy football sevens, to get back to that. I created a league in college, 2010, 2011. And I wanted to play with defensive players. As somebody that played linebacker my whole life and enjoys the defensive side of the ball, somebody that understands that side of the ball really well. And I wanted to bring it to people because we played in our league you were in that. We rebooted that league actually last year, and it's the 11th year. So it's based off of that. But the whole concept of it is like, playing sevens, what they call sevens for football training and spring football, particularly in Texas high school. That's off season. That's what you do. You go practice sevens if you're a skill player, being running back, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, and cornerbacks.
7-on-7 drills. Yeah.
7-on-7 drills. Yeah. So that's what it kind of stimulated from. And you have the quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, no tight end. You have a flex and a super flex. So if you want to play 2 tight ends, you can. And then you have a kicker. Yes, because like I said, Greg, I like all points to count. And I have somebody that's lost on the Monday night last second field goal, and you'll always remember it if you play fantasy football and you lose on that week. I promise you. And then we can't. Yeah, if you get punt return yards, you get kick return yards, and then you have a linebacker, a defensive lineman, and a defensive back. So 3 requirements and then 3 flexes for the IDPs, but you still play with the team defense. And some people don't like it. Some people do like it. What I love about it is when we talked about, like when JC keeps bringing up Max Crosby and Wilkins, well, why do they have those guys? Because they're playing Herbert, because they're playing Mahomes. And if you want to double down on a defense, like if you want the Steelers defense and TJ Watt, you can go get that, and you can still get the double down just like you do. I guess a lot of people call it a stack, actually, Greg. But like you can stack TJ Watt with that defense, and you can still go, just like you could go stack CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs if you wanted. And like I said, you get team return yards plus the individual return yards. So if there's a good kick returner before they eliminate it, I still think it's one of I think special teams is so great and fun to watch. I think the most exciting plays on the field are almost kick returns, last second field goals, and punt returns next to sack. I think a sack is like the biggest, sack, strip, fumble is the most exciting play in football, in my humble opinion. So that's what fantasy football sevens is: balanced scoring. The defense scores as much as the quarterback, the linebackers score as much as the wide receivers. The defensive line or the safety score as much as the running backs, and the defensive linemen score as much as the tight ends. So
where do you draft?
We do it on Sleeper. We do a slow draft every year. We're going to start it probably, I like to start it the weekend after July 5th, or excuse me, July 4th. That's been a tradition. Let everybody kind of get that out. Don't let that interrupt our drafts. But, Greg, it's international. We've drafted on every continent except Antarctica and Asia at this point. Still looking for an Asia person to participate in fantasy football. And it's just going to keep growing. This year's theme is music. So we'll break it up in music. And if you join, you'll have a chance to play people like Greg. You'll have a chance to play people like JC. You'll have a chance to play people like Bob Harris, Mike Dempsey from Sirius XM. Mel made her first year ever. She got thrown in the Wolves, and she came out with a better record than I did. So really proud of you, Mel. A lot of expo people, just having fun out there. And to answer your question, Greg, any donation is accepted. This year, we're probably going to revert it back to the people that helped me here in Colorado, be a straight donation, send me your receipt. But we are in the process, my wife and I, of getting our 501c through the state. And, we're doing this all on our own. We'll have an attorney review it, of course, but we're the ones that do it in our free time. We're doing the 1099 EZF or whatever the form is right now. So we're hoping by next year is full on. And like I said, the goal is awareness, and it's fun to play with IDP. And Greg and I always try to say, we make every statistic count. It's fantasy football. You want them all to count. Why not include sacks? Why not include punt return yards? Why not include, as much as you can from safeties, pass deflections, tackles for loss? All those things are fun to record. So if you want to check it out, we're going to get working on it as soon as the NFL draft starts. That's kind of when the fantasy football season for me begins, and we'll get that information out to everybody. We've already got there's a form we floated around for people here. I think there's already something like 45 or 50 people already signed up for next year. So we're looking to get about 100 more than that, honestly, and go from there, man. Oh, and it's 16 teams. That's what else, Greg. That's what, when I made that league a long time ago, I won 2 or 3 10-team leagues in a row. And I was like, man, it's not fun. Now, when you do a 16-team league, yeah, you get 3 weeks of the playoffs. You got to earn it. You got to win 3 games in a row to close out your season to be a champion in a 16-team league. Half the team makes it. I think it's a gauntlet. There's no letting up. You can't let up for any player. You can't let up in any week. And it's a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody to come check it out.
It's a shallow bench too. So
5 bench.
Shallow bench. So
what are the free agency requirements? Do you get free agents every week?
Yes.
Yep. I do waiver wire. I do a rolling priority waiver wire, kind of keeping it old school. So whenever you put one in, you move to the back of the line. With 16 teams, if everybody puts in a waiver, you better have a couple lined up.
Yeah. All right. So are there a limit to the number of waiver pickups you can make each week?
Yes, I did limit it, I think, but it's a high number, about 10, because somebody, I had them picking up people and dropping them so other people couldn't get them as a strategy. I didn't really fault them, but I didn't think that was right, especially in a charity league. If you're in a home league and you're trying to keep one of your friends from getting a running back on the major bye week, okay, I can understand that strategy. But a charity league, playing people that have never played before, I mean, come on, let's try to keep the morale up.
Charity league. I will definitely be playing this year. I want to recommend everybody sign up for that. I also would like everybody to sign up for the Scott Fish Bowl.
Oh yeah.
Last week, Scott came on our show and announced There will be a live draft in Houston this year. You can sign up for it, and if you get selected for the live draft, that pretty much ensures you're in the Scott Fish Bowl. And with 42,000 people trying to get into a league that has last year 3,300 teams.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, chances are you're not going to get in the first time you try. But if you're willing to go to a live draft, that ups your odds substantially. So
And
sign
donate.
up for Scott Fish Bowl. Scott Fish donated $286,000 last year.
Yeah,
to
that's
charities
amazing.
through fantasycares.org. Check out fantasycares.org. Check out Scott Fish Bowl. You can Google it. Iggy and Scott are kindred spirits. They're trying to do something to help other people's lives. And JC, you're included in that because you help Iggy do what he does. So I want to make, we got about 10 minutes left. So it's getting towards the end of the show, and I can't go without talking about Bob Lung's Fantasy Football Expo. I met Iggy and JC last year at the Expo with Mace Riding. This year, Tipp is going with his girlfriend Alana. So Tipp will be there. I'll be there. One of the hottest new shows is Carla and Wendy's Game Changers, now on Wednesday nights. What time is it, JC?
So they're an hour earlier. So it's, as I like to say, 7:30, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, because that's the best time.
That's where we live, yeah.
That's what Scott says. Central time is the best time.
Well, we're on at 6 Central. We're on at 6 Central here,
so 7:30
because
Central,
we wanted to lead into the Thursday night games.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on, and we will be bringing Gary back. Gary's been on our show already. Gary and Scott Fish were on the show because Gary helped me interview Scott Fish 15 years ago on a podcast. So, and we love Gary, and so we will have Gary back on.
I did want to ask you something real quick. Is there something I heard through the grapevine that there's a little bit of a cool project that you might be dropping here soon?
Well,
Lions related.
Yeah, you see, Iggy and JC get really tired of me mentioning my Michigan Wolverines, which I probably won't be mentioning a whole lot next year because the coaching staff was decimated, as well as there may be as many as 16 Wolverines drafted this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's an amazing number of college players from one college. I'll still be watching the Wolverines. I'll still love Sharon Moore and the team. Donovan Edwards is going to be a draft pick next year, a high one. And there's some real talent on that Michigan team. But you lose Blake Corum, you lose Roman Wilson, you lose J.J. McCarthy. That offense is not going to be the same.
No,
it just won't be. But I get into these Twitter feuds with people like I'm convinced Blake Corum is the next Barry Sanders. Now, he's not as fast as Barry was. I think he's as elusive as Barry was, which is saying a lot. But I also think he's a much better inside runner than Barry was. And I actually broke down every single, this is the way I wrote when I was writing. I would go to the statistics and then add to them. I broke down every single Blake Corum run over the last 2 years that was from the 10-yard line in or 2 yards to go, regardless of down. So like 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, or less, to get the short yardage, because people, Herms, who I respect greatly, understand that. Herms did a profile for Draft Sharks on Blake, and he said his weakness was short yardage. Well, I disagree with that entirely. Now, he may not run straight up the middle a whole lot because that's not the way the Michigan offense was designed, and it's not to his strength. The kids, depending on who you talk to, 205 to 214, okay? I think he's 214-ish personally, but he's strong. He did 27 reps of 225.
That's
Now
beast.
to compare that, John Alt did 27 reps of 225. I think he deadlifted 600 pounds. I mean,
Jesus.
the kid is amazingly strong. Okay. So anyway, I think he's going to be a great back next year. I think he'll be the best back in this draft. But I dug into the stats. I expanded on it. Well, I got an argument about Brad Holmes. I think Brad Holmes is the best GM in the NFL today. And we're going to break down every draft pick that Brad Holmes has made over the last 3 years. We're going to do it this weekend. Not sure when JC's going to put it up. We're going to record it this weekend. We got a new TSA affiliate, Will, who's doing all the graphics for us. So be sure you watch and you comment on Will, because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And he volunteered to do that. He's doing it in 2 to 3 days so that we're ready. Now, instead of being Tipp and me, normally it would be Tipp and I. Tipp is out of town this week, so it's going to be Ronnie Evans and I. And if Ronnie can't make it for some reason, I'm going to draft one of these two yahoos. And we're basically going to go through every pick that he's made and where they are. Now, I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Every pick that Brad Holmes has made over the last 2 years, as of when I did the research, was still on the Detroit Lions roster.
That's wild.
Practice squad, every pick. That's like 23 picks.
That's good.
All of them are still on the Detroit Lions roster. So I'd say that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, it's
much less match. And so now this will be the test, because this year he's drafted much later than he has in previous years. Because let's face it, Detroit sucked 2 years ago. In 2021, they won 3 games. So
I think this is a deeper class. I think so. You're going to get a lot. There's a lot, not just offensive players. You got good defense.
But Detroit doesn't have the needs that they had.
But
Detroit doesn't have the same level of needs that they had 2 years ago.
I mean, you
They've
can always
improved their roster a lot. Yeah, so, but we're going to be doing that this weekend. We're going to be putting it together this weekend, and hopefully it'll come out professional. There's another project I want to talk about that's near and dear to my heart. Wendy Early has posted a short little video of people that she met at the expo last year, okay? Maybe minute and a half, 2 minutes, okay? I posted a reel of the expo too, where I had some pictures. Next year, I'm going to do a full-length documentary. It's going to be between an hour and 2 hours. I'm going to do what I call short-form interviews. I'm going to try to interview content creators, salespeople who sell things, and just regular fans. I'm going to try to get 100 of those interviews and put them all in. So that's going to be our project for the expo. If you come see us, because I will put you on film. That's it, guys. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming to the expo, we are going to have a booth. So, I mean, come hang out with us. I highly, highly recommend, if you are, even if you're just a consumer of fantasy football, and if you're looking for a way to get a vacation, I would highly, 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 highly recommend going to this. It's your one way to talk to people like us, people like Greg, people like Andy Behrens, like Scott Fish, Scott Angle, Bob Long. Like, there's so many. I mean,
Bob Harris.
Yeah, Bob Harris. I mean, there's so many people that you can just bump into, talk to, and everyone's so open. It's literally, just think about going to a family reunion that you actually enjoy going to. You know, like, think about that. It's literally a family reunion. Like, everyone's there to hang out, have some drinks, talk football, talk whatever, family, talk about what's going on in their life. Like, it's literally a weekend of fun. Like, it's so fun.
I talked to Wendy for 15 minutes watching Iggy destroy a wide receiver. Yes, I know you have the right to the ball, Iggy. I understand that. But I mean, he did full out. He did full out. I'm killing that guy to get the ball. But I was talking to Wendy for 15 minutes. She had no idea who I was. And that's fine. We had a good conversation and we became friends largely because of it. to me, it was my first ever opportunity to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And last year, there was a free ticket with our entrance fee. So we got to go in and no extra charge. This year, that's not the case because too many people just threw that ticket away and didn't use it, which to me is insane.
Yeah, for sure.
I loved that, to be honest. But you'll get a chance to meet everybody. Iggy, what was your highlight other than the hit? We should just call that the hit and immortalize it. I wish I had a picture of it. It would have been great. Other than the hit, Iggy, what was your highlight from last year's Expo? You're muted, Iggy.
Are you muted? I don't think it's muted.
Oh.
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me now?
We can now.
You're good.
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, you couldn't hear us, but we could hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Us, I hear you.
Okay, I don't know why we had those issues up, but yeah, it's my highlights just seeing everybody. You know, JC and I got to walk through the Hall of Fame in the last 20 minutes of it closing.
It was awesome.
Nobody was in there. You know, I cry every time I go in there, so I don't know why somebody would waste that ticket. That's so stupid to me. You know, but yeah, that was a cool experience for JC and I to kind of like have a super full day and then still go to the Hall of Fame and nobody be there. Just kind of be in the room of the bus, but just
hey guys, Tipp is going to karaoke. Tipp is going to karaoke.
You're going to karaoke.
No, yeah. I'm not. I'm going to film it.
You know what? The highlight actually might be watching Scott the King Angle sing some karaoke. Like he is. Sunday night was awesome. Like, it was a long day. So the weekend. So, I mean, I got there. I mean, I drive in from Minnesota. It's like a 12-hour drive. I mean, I picked up Iggy from the airport. Then we got back to the hotel on Thursday. And then it was just
You picked up Scott, too.
Yeah, the next day I picked up Scott from the I mean, it was Friday is a wild party. I mean, it rained on last Friday, but we still had a great time. And the rain was almost even better because it was like an opportunity. It was like an opportunity to just like hang out with people closer, you know, like I didn't think I would get an opportunity to be sitting there talking with Scott Angle, and then here comes Andy Behrens to just chime in the conversation. And then literally we got to watch Andy Behrens change his number one pick to who was it, Bijan Robinson or something, like number one overall pick. It was crazy. It was like, whoa, what is happening here? But I mean, it was interesting, you know. I mean, got to meet a bunch of whole new people. Greg, we met you. I mean, we got to hang out with you a whole bunch, and we had lunch with you, and we met Fish. We met Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony George. Yeah, he hung out with us too. Had dinner with us. He's a great fantasy football mind. He won the fantasy football division that I was in, the fantasy football sevens division I was in. Anthony, if you're looking for somebody with top-notch advice that's on it, Anthony's always on it.
Two fat guys fantasy football.
Yeah, he's great. And I wanted to say I had some technical issues, but I do want to say, like, just let you know, like a Hall of Famer, you got Greg, you got Scott Engel, you got Bob Harris, and these people, like, you can approach them.
Joe Bryant was there.
Joe Bryant, Andy Burns. I mean, JC got stuck in the rain with Andy Behrens, just sitting outside in the rain, and it's like, you know, I mean, I was a little intimidated my first year, you know, but when you go there, don't be intimidated. You're going to have these Hall of Famers. Like you said, Wendy had no clue. And Greg's not like, oh, you don't know who I am? Like, no, it's a great group of people. It's a humble group of people. And it's people that love fantasy football.
Yeah. Everyone's willing to talk. Everyone wants to chat.
And don't be afraid to ask him a question. Ask any of us a question.
Or take a picture or anything. Everyone's cool. I mean, everyone's cool.
Yeah. And we're, like I say, I'm going to get a lot of video and a lot of photos, and we're going to turn it into a 1 to 2 hour documentary. And Bob Lung has already given us the approval for this. So if you're watching this after the show, be sure, because you're going to be watching it on YouTube, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I will go in afterwards and try to answer all your comments. And tell your friends about it, because we're going to be doing more and more, and I've got to do this because I don't remember who our guest is next week. But I do have it down here. Oh, I should have it. Let's see. We had Gina and Craig Noble next week.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be
so
a fun
good.
one.
Okay.
And the week after that, the
If
week
you want
after
to be
that, there's
entertained.
another podcaster that's fairly well known, some cat named Derek Brown,
Okay.
Oh,
who
nice.
is Tipp's first guest.
All
Tipp
right.
has invited Derek, so we're really looking to that. I'm looking to Gina and Craig because
Oh yeah.
my wife won't have anything to do with fantasy. Period.
Craig's been
Well,
he's like
fantasy football. Let me be a little bit more specific. But she allows me to play anyway. So I really want to meet Craig and find out how he met and married Gina, who has to be the greatest fantasy wife ever.
Oh,
I
no
agree.
doubt, man.
And a lot of energy.
Well, they play in a league together. They have like a league that they play in together. I think that he got her into fantasy and like legit. I think she's probably more into it now than he is. But like last year, Gina, like, oh man, she was top 10 in the Scott Fish Bowl for like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Six. She was six for a
Oh
long
yeah,
time.
she was like dominating. Like, and it's crazy. Like I said, they do like a destination draft. Like literally, they're in a league where they like go destination draft. Like I think last year they're from North Carolina, and I think they went to like Arizona to do a draft with like a league that they're in. So
That's awesome.
They're pretty into it. They do golf, like they do a draft, like they're like big into this. Like
guys, send me the inside info so we've got good questions.
Yeah, they're
I'm looking forward to that.
They're fun. Like Gina and they're good people. So it'll be a very entertaining, very entertaining hour.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. And if you're listening to this and you want to get into content creation, reach out to JC and Iggy. They're always looking to bring on writers, podcasters, anything that you want to try. They can give you direction.
Yep.
If you have a question about how I got started in it, shoot me an email. I'm Gregory L. Kellogg on Twitter or X. You shoot me a question, I will always answer it. And we're going to be doing another Generations beta test, but it's going to be a big one. 16 to 20 teams. We're going to be doing that. If you reach out to me and I have a spot, I'll put you in it. I do know that I'm trying to get some content creators. And Joe Bryan has promised me 4 or 5 from Football Guys to test the app. So it's still in beta. It's not ready for prime time, but man, they've made corrections already for us. And I got to say, I love the game. I really do. I'm really enjoying it.
I won. Was the first beta test? I won that, right? I won that one. I'm in
Who had the best record?
We're on. It doesn't matter. I won. The second beta one. I think we're on a bye week right now, right? You and me are on a bye week.
Yeah. Tomorrow you have to play Walker with me, who is probably one of the harder matchups.
That's okay. I think I have like the highest scoring team in that league.
You do, but all it takes is one bad game.
I know.
Look at me.
I'm just glad you got Walker with me and I got my matchup.
That's okay. Hey, I'm here to play. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you've got another one going yourself too, right? You've got a beta test going.
Yeah.
How many teams is in there?
I just got knocked out of the playoffs in that one. So
10-teamer. And guess what? I'm the highest scoring in that one too. So JC's got a little knowledge going here.
Are you doing the same players?
I love it.
I got that team is just stacked. I got Mahomes.
Are you doing the same players in every league?
Like it's so good. What?
Yeah.
See, I said, are you drafting the same players in each league?
Hey, if they fall to me, it don't matter. I'm just gonna bet the best players. It's
when
consistent.
You can draft Hall of Famers, who cares?
Hey, how Bob Long puts it, man. But consistency in this league for sure. Consistency is 100% matters in generations. Like the most consistent players, like who's actually up there? I was gonna say Aaron Rodgers, dude. Aaron Rodgers has been crushing it for me in one of the leagues. I mean, I would say like even if besides Josh Allen's first year, I mean, he would be a super consistent quarterback. You know, he's been a top 10 quarterback the last 4 years besides year one. You know, like that's consistency.
Cam Newton's been crushing it for Walker with me, so that
Yeah,
should be a good matchup.
Those rushing touchdowns in this league, but yeah, I mean,
he
I
was
wasn't ever.
You know his team name when he started this?
What was
The
it?
Fran T Fan Club.
Oh yeah.
And then he played me in week 1, and before week 1, he had dropped Fran Tarkenton and picked up somebody else.
Same thing in our first beta. I had Fran week 1, and I dropped him and picked. I don't know who. I picked up Mahomes because he was out there as a free agent. I was like, all right, and he drove me to the Super Bowl. Let's go, baby.
No matter how you get there, just get there, baby.
Oh yeah, this year, in this league, the 12 team, I drafted nothing but active players. No Hall of Famers, no retired players. I got Mahomes, I got CMC, I got Derrick Henry. I got nothing but active players, and they led me to, I think, 8-3 regular season record. I had the best record in the league, number 1 seed. JC came in at 7-4, number 2 seed, because JC outscored me by probably close to 100 points in total points. JC had the highest scoring team far and away.
Yeah.
So, but all it takes is one. JC's lost 4 games, so all it takes is one bad game.
Yeah, man, that's the thing about the NFL. Any form of the NFL.
I think my coach benched all my starters before week 11. Because I scored like 50 points. I think he was resting them for the playoffs.
Yeah, it had to have been, right?
Yeah.
All right, JC.
Guys, that's it. Take us home.
Yeah, I'll take us out of here. Appreciate everyone hanging out tonight. Yeah, we're a lot of things coming with the Sports Affiliation. So make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out. I mean, we're even on
Twitter. Check us out on Twitter.
Twitter for sure.
Yeah, make sure you follow us. A lot of things coming, so be prepared. Come hang out with us. A lot of fun coming. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get out of here. Peace, everyone.